Hello and welcome to the Ourlads Gambling Show. I'm your host, Ryan McKee, and I am joined today by Terrell Furman Jr. How's it going, Terrell? How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I'm living. I mean, we get to talk NFL football, and we got cheated out of the Hall of Fame game about a quarter and a half. So, you know
Yeah,
what? I'm glad to get that time back with talking with you.
absolutely, absolutely. Where can people find you these days? Tell our listeners what you're at.
Oh, well, you can find me at bettingpros.com. I'm Betting Pros sports betting analyst. I just accepted that position. So I have a bunch of stuff dropping.
Congrats.
Appreciate it. Have a bunch of stuff dropping there. You can find me in the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, WNBA Gambling Podcast, NBA Gambling Podcast. You'll find me on the Mothership every now and then as well. So a bunch of different places you can find me.
Great. Where are you on X? What's your X
At
handle?
really rail _ at really rail X. Oh man, I thought you were asking me what? I thought that was a personal question. I had to remember that it's not Twitter
How's your
anymore.
ex? How's your exes doing? No, yeah, Twitter. Sorry, X, whatever we're calling it these days. Okay, today Terrell and I are going to be going through receiving and rushing futures. We're going to be talking about who can lead the league in both, and also maybe put together some parlays on guys that'll go over 1,000 yards. So yeah, I'm excited to jump in. I haven't talked to Terrell in a while. We go back to NBA gambling podcast together, so excited to get your input on these bets. So yeah, let's just jump in, and we are going to go first to the most regular season rushing yards. We have Christian McCaffrey at plus 275, Jonathan Taylor plus 600, Saquon Barkley plus 650, Breece Hall plus 800. I can pull up the screen here and show our live listeners. But where are you going first when you hear most regular season rushing yards, Terrell?
So it's a couple of things that I consider here, and it's really just first off of data off the past, and then I kind of look at how the teams are projected now. And if you're looking at past trend data, as of right now, 27 and under is the age for running backs when if they want this award. Like that's typically what's happened in the past 20 plus years or so. The only running backs to win over age 27 was Adrian Peterson at 30 in 2015. And then before that was LT at 28 in 2007. So you really don't have too many times that a running back over the age of 27 is really winning this award. So I look at that, at the age, and then I make sure the obvious things. Do they have a rushing quarterback? No player with a rushing quarterback in that span has won the award, and no player splitting time with anybody getting anywhere close to the near amount of snaps that they're getting has won the award as well. Like you have to not split time with another running back, of course. You have to not have a rushing quarterback, of course. But that age is a big part. So when you factor all of that into it, it crosses out a lot of names on the list. Christian McCaffrey,
I like that.
You cross out Christian McCaffrey on the age. You cross out Jonathan Taylor with Anthony Richardson. You cross out Saquon Barkley with Jalen Hurts and the age. You cross out with Saquon's going.
Hey,
into
how old
20.
is Jonathan Taylor? I thought he was 26. I'm
No,
wrong.
he's 26. No, but he has Anthony Richardson. So it's
Oh, you're talking about
Anthony Richardson
rushing
is gonna
quarterbacks. Yeah,
steal some work. Derrick Henry has Lamar Jackson, and he's 30 this year. That's gonna
yeah.
be a problem. And then you go down, Breece Hall. Okay, hold on. Aaron Rodgers is QB. He's not splitting with any of the other running backs right now. He's gonna get majority of the work. So Breece Hall is the first name that I'm looking at 8-1. He's really interesting. Kyron Williams was third in rushing last year, and he only had 13th most attempts in the league. Like he didn't even get anywhere clear near the attempts, but he was third in rushing, and it was just
Yeah,
that
what did he
Christian
play, like
McCaffrey was so
14
good.
games or something like that? He didn't play a full season.
So and that's the question that I have for you, because I'm somebody that I can't sell myself on Kyron Williams because of his head coach. Sean McVay hasn't given us any reason to trust him with a running back for basically his whole tenure as head coach of the Rams. And so last year was the first year where he really stuck with Williams. Is he going to stick with him again? Because if he is, that 12-1 is a really, really nice price.
because they went out and drafted Blake Corum. So that's what a lot
Yeah.
of people are saying, that Blake Corum might be stealing snaps from Kyron Williams as the season goes along, at least.
Yeah, so that's the question mark that I have with Kyron Williams. But however, nonetheless, he does actually fit into this category. Bijan Robinson at 12-1 is the next name that I had written down. And everybody sits here and I hear it. Oh, there's Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier. They like Tyler Algier. But
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. It's a new coaching staff. It could be a completely new offense. But last year, Bijan had 771 snaps. Tyler Algier had 360.
Yeah.
If you want
Yeah.
to compare that to a past winner, 2021, Jonathan Taylor had 768 snaps and Naeem Hines had 350. So it's precedence. I think Bijan is actually a really good look at 12-1.
I like that. Bijan at 12-1. Tyler Algier. You're not worried about Tyler Algier. I did write down a note that the Falcons OC just came out and said Tyler Algier will have a big role, but that's preseason. That could be just preseason talk, is what you're thinking.
Yeah, possibly. And then if you see somebody is playing so well, how do you take them off the field because you like another guy? Like, you got to go with the hot hand. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the Bijan Robinson train. Me personally, talking fantasy and not talking betting, I would take Bijan over Christian McCaffrey. I would. And so
Right.
I think the value,
He's younger, has less injury history.
less tread on the legs. Like Christian McCaffrey had 400 plus snaps, 400 plus touches in what, playoffs and regular season combined last year. Like, that's a lot of workload for a second season. So Bijan Robinson, I think, is really, really interesting here. Just skipping down the list, Travis Etienne also fits into this category at 30-1 that I think
I like that for a long shot.
play. I love as a
Yeah.
play. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, I'm not always sold on Trevor Lawrence. And I just feel like Travis Etienne last year played himself into a role that's like, all right, no matter how much we want this to be a downfield passing offense, now Travis Etienne is making us run the ball with him. He's making us play him because of how explosive he looks. And so at 30-1, and he fits the criteria, I think you got to have a flyer on Travis Etienne.
All right, love that, Travis Etienne. Another name I wrote down, and you probably already negated it because it's the rushing quarterback, but James Cook, 40-1. Josh Allen has the rushing quarterback there, but he was fourth in rushing yards last year, and he didn't really get that full role until a few games into the season. I think he's coming into the season this year as the clear-cut number one. Any thoughts on James Cook, or are you just too worried about it because of the Josh Allen rushing?
So I think that it's a fun sweat, but I do think that it probably comes up just a little bit short because of the rushing. Like, that could be the difference between you being first and you being second, and one wins money and one doesn't. And that's really a big issue for me. So I think that, oh, is that me? Is that somebody in here? Okay, that's the iPad, the kid's iPad that is going off in the background. So
no worries.
You know, kids and their iPads, their friends are calling
Kids and their
all the
iPads.
time. But nonetheless, while everybody's listening to the embarrassing iPhone sound in the background here, I think the thing that really sells me on James Cook instead of taking leading rusher, if you look at his odds for 1,000-yard season that you were talking about, he's at plus 120. I think that he can 100% be 1,000-yard rusher. Like, that's 100%
it was last year. Yeah, he was last year. So I do like that. Any other, before we get to the 1,000-yard rushing, any other long shots you would consider taking here to lead the league in rushing, or ones you would definitely stay away from? Like, one I'd definitely stay away from, Devin Achane at 20-1. I don't get the Devin hype. He's going to be sharing the workload. He didn't stay healthy last year. I know he was electric in the games we saw him, but I just don't see him playing a full season.
I mean, I talked about it. You can't split time. You're not winning an award if you're splitting time, because that means half of that work is going to somebody else. Mostert had 582 snaps last year. Achane had 323. He's explosive. Now, that's another player we can talk about in the next segment. He's explosive and he can have big games. But again, to be the leading rusher, you got to kind of start to pull yourself away at the end. And I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to pull himself away. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 10 rusher. I wouldn't. But number one, nah, I'm not there.
Yeah. And I know we're speaking about fantasy right now, but I feel like he's one that's going way too high in a lot of fantasy drafts just because of that reason. I do think he's going to be splitting carries. And we saw last year Raheem Mostert, what was right up there, and he's still there. I know he's old, but he's still there. He's not going anywhere in that Miami offense yet.
And another one I'm with the same mindset as Mostert and Achane. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is still a thing. Like, as much as we love to see Jahmyr Gibbs last year, he had 680 snaps last year. Monty had 555. Shout out to the Angel number 555. But like, Gibbs has to make Montgomery obsolete for him to win it, and I don't think that they're gonna do that. I mean, look at what the Lions did with Swift and Montgomery, or Swift and X running back. Like, they did not just give them the ball, and so is Gibbs gonna play himself into that role? Possibly, but it just doesn't seem like that's the way they want to run the offense. I mean, even in what was it, Hard Knocks that they had, and they were talking about it. They said they like having a bunch of different running backs that can play and constantly be bruisers. So Jahmyr Gibbs at 20-1, I see a lot of people talking about, but I just haven't been able to get there. And it's really the splitting time with Montgomery. If you told me there was no Montgomery, then I would say yes, Jahmyr Gibbs to the moon. But with Montgomery there, I can't get there.
Yeah. So you like Ian at 30-1 better than Jahmyr Gibbs at 20-1.
Yes. I love ETN better than Gibbs and Achane at 20-1.
Yeah. I'm with you on ETN. I like that call a lot. So you're looking at Breece Hall and Travis Etienne most for this bet?
Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, and Bijan Robinson. Those are my three. 8-1, 12-1, 8-1, 12-1, and 30-1.
All right. Love those plays. Let's move on to our next segment. We're going to be talking running backs who have a chance of getting 1,000 yards. And we can parlay this. You can parlay up to 6 selections. So I thought this would be fun to build a little parlay with you. Who we're feeling like most confident can get 1,000 yards. I was thinking, right off the bat, I kind of like Jonathan Taylor minus 110. He hasn't had 1,000 yards in the last 2 seasons, but he hasn't been. He played 11 and 10 games respectively, so I think he's due for another 1,000-yard season. What do you think about Jonathan Taylor? Are you too worried about the rushing quarterback there?
No, the rushing quarterback really just kind of pulls me away from being the leading rusher, because that could be the difference in you finishing with 1,400 yards and you finishing with 1,200 yards or 1,100 yards. Like that, those couple 300 yards could be that difference. But Jonathan Taylor, I'm with you. I think he gets to 1,000 yards. And I think actually Anthony Richardson helps him get there, because maybe he doesn't have as many attempts as he's used to, because Richardson's getting attempts, but they're going to be quality looks, because you have to look at the threat of Anthony Richardson. Shane Steichen is going to have this offense running and geared to what Richardson's good at. So yeah, he's going to be on the ground, but that's also going to open things up for Taylor as well. And Taylor may get a couple of lanes where the defender decides to watch the quarterback, freezes for just a second, and Taylor has a really, really good run. So I think it's going to be way more of an efficient year for Jonathan Taylor. And I think 1,000 is really good at minus 110. So I say we add him as well. For me to add one, I already talked about him. Travis Etienne is getting to 1,000 yards.
All right, at plus 120. I like that.
He's getting the workload. They have the offense. They're going to be in the game script where they're competitive in games, and they're not going to have to just go away to the pass every single time. Like, I think Travis Etienne at plus money is a really, really good bet here, and I would throw him in as well.
All right. What about what are your thoughts on Derrick Henry? I know he's 30 years old, but he has 5 of his last 6 seasons over 1,000 yards. He was only 60 yards short the season he missed, but he only played 8 games. We expect Derrick Henry to have another 1,000-yard season this year, or are we in disagreement on that?
No, I think he still can get there. Like I said, 1,000 yards is It's still a tough feat for a running back, but it's way more realistic for Derrick Henry than, like I said, leading rusher, where you have Lamar Jackson that's going to get some 700, 800 yards every season. And so now Derrick Henry, is he going to go out there and have the 1,700, yard season, a 1,500 yard season? Possibly not. But at the end of the season, if Derrick Henry's at what, 1050, 1,100, is that surprising at all? Like, that's
No, not
consistent
at
work
all.
from, and the rushing attack. And so we'll see what Monken's offense looks with a Derrick Henry. But I think that running the ball, they're going to be really good. So I'm with you. Derrick Henry at -105 is a pretty solid bet.
Great. Where would you like to go next? So we've got 3 picks right now: Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and Travis Etienne. That puts us at a parlay at +720. Do we want to
a long shot?
or do we? Yeah, let's throw in a long shot.
Zamir White at 3-1.
Zamir White at 3-1. Liking
Zamir
that.
White, he crosses every single box of the NFL leading rusher. He doesn't split time. He doesn't have a rushing quarterback. He's underage. He doesn't have the tread on the tires. And now they're getting a pretty solid offensive line with the Raiders. Antonio Pierce, hard-nosed, smash-mouth, gridiron football coach. Like, hey, we're going to dominate the trenches. We're going to run the ball. We're going to make things easier for our young quarterback. And so if Zamir White stays healthy, why can't he have 1,000 yards this season as really the only show in town? If he has a solid offensive line play, I think he can get there. So 3-1? I don't think he's 3-1. He fits all the criteria to be a leading rusher, and he's 3-1. I think that's a really, really fun bet.
Yeah, that puts our 4-pick parlay at +3180. I think that's a great spot to go. Some other names we didn't mention but we did mention in leading rushers: Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. Also great plays here, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Any thoughts on James Cook at +120? We already talked about him as well.
I'm actually a little bit more sold on James Cook being able to get this done because, I mean, he was so good last year. He, like you said, what was he, 4th in rushing last year? And that's the first time I've seen Buffalo even look like that. All the years of Buffalo, whether it was Singletary, Moss, the back end years of Shady McCoy, like, it just hasn't been good for running backs in Buffalo. But James Cook has found himself a mark, and it doesn't seem like they're going away from him anytime soon. And they're probably going to need another option with no Stephon Diggs and all the question marks at wide receiver. They're probably going to need another offensive option. It's got to be on Cook. So I like Cook at +120. I think that's really good.
All right. Any names you're staying away from here? I mean, we already mentioned Christian McCaffrey. He's at -330. I just feel like the injury history for that much juice is a little too unstable there.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch Christian McCaffrey with a 10-foot pole. And Josh Jacobs at +115. I'm not interested in that either. I question the defense for the Green Bay Packers and if they have turned the corner and look good. And so if that team is in negative game script, they've shown in the past that they can go away from the run and just throw the ball a million times. And then also they've shown with the whole free Aaron Jones fiasco that, they're not going to give one running back all the touches. So now they have Marshawn Lloyd that they drafted. They still got A.J. Dillon on the roster, who he looked terrible last year, but he's still there. So I don't think that they're going to be as forthcoming to give Josh Jacobs all the touches as people think. So I think Josh Jacobs is a play that people think that they're sneaking on, but I'm just concerned about the Green Bay Packers philosophy on offense and how they've treated running backs in the past.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And they seem to really like Marshawn Lloyd there. So he's going to be getting touches. And he definitely is going to be the back of the future. It seems, as long as he is as talented as he showed in college. All right, great. Any other names we want to mention before we move on to wide receivers?
I know I said I didn't like him for leading rusher. I think Achane at +330 is still a really good bet because of how explosive he is when he does get the ball in his hand. And you can only assume that he's going to get the ball in his hands more than last year. Just may not be enough to make Mostert obsolete. So I think the 2-1 was absurd of him to be leading rusher, but plus 330 to get 1,000 yards. Actually, that doesn't make sense. Like how is he 2-1 but plus 330? But then you have Travis Etienne, who's 30-1 for to win leading
No, I
rusher,
think
but he's plus
HN was 20 to 1 to be leading rusher.
Okay, he was 20-1. And yeah, so
Yeah.
now he's plus 330 to have 1,000 yards. Like, how, if you think he's going to be the leading rusher, he has to have 1,000 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I
That's
think
good.
HN at plus 330 is a really, really good play.
That's a good long shot to add if you're trying to up your odds. All right, so but the one we put together: Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, and Zamir White. That is at plus 3180. So go ahead and tail that if you guys like it. Let's move on to our wide receivers. We're talking about most reception yards. We've got Tyreek Hill at plus 600, CeeDee Lamb plus 650, Jamar Chase plus 900, Justin Jefferson 10-1, Amon-Ra St. Brown 11-1, AJ Brown 12-1. Where would you like to start, Terrell?
Well, I mean, I'm a guy of philosophy and trends, and so if you look at wide receiver, it's a lot more fluid. There's not too many, barriers. Old wide receivers have won it, young wide receivers have won it. Like, they've gotten it done.
Yeah.
But what has been the most common denominator is the fact that everybody, for the most part, everybody has had that gunslinger quarterback, that guy that's going out there and throwing for 4,000 plus yards. There's only a couple of times that it hasn't happened. In 2019 with Michael Thomas, when Drew Brees was at 3,000 yards, he got hurt. Teddy Bridgewater came in and threw for another 1,400. So he still really got there through the yardage and not the quarterbacks. But then you got to go all the way back to 2013 with Josh Gordon. Do you know who was Josh Gordon's quarterbacks on that team?
What was that guy's name? Brandon something?
Yeah. Come on.
He was there. Like the 29-year-old rookie or something like that. I can't remember his name. Brandon Weeden. Yeah, good call. All right.
Brandon Weeden. He had Jason Campbell and Brian Hoyer as his quarterbacks in 2013 and won this leading receiver. That's crazy. And then before that, you can go back to 2010 with Brandon Lloyd winning the award.
I remember when Brandon Lloyd won it, and that was like rookie Tim Tebow starting some games. Plus
Tim Tebow, Kyle Orton.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, man. Crazy times.
So, all right. So when you talk about all this, how are you? Oh, Old Fashioned Football just chimed in on our chat. So thanks for watching live. Hard to fade Tyreek or CD, but I keep thinking of Amon-Ra St. Brown may set the league on fire this year. I am in total agreement. That's the name that I wrote down that I wanted to talk to you most about, because Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're talking about the gunslinger quarterback. That checks out, and he had the same number of receptions last year as Tyreek Hill. Same number of receptions, fewer yards, but I think he could get there this year. And he's young, and the Lions have shown they're willing to throw the ball a shitload.
Yeah, and in addition to the quarterback, you got to dominate in targets. You have to be the leading target getter by at least 60 plus targets, sometimes even more. And so Amon-Ra, I don't have that question. I think he's clear cut. The only thing that could hold him back is how good is Sam Laporta. We know Sam Laporta is good, but how good is he? Does Sam Laporta steal away from Amon-Ra St. Brown this year? And I mean, maybe he does, and maybe Amon-Ra still gets there. Maybe this is only Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown this year, but that's the only thing that's kind of hindered me back from Amon-Ra, is the fact that Sam Laporta is in that offense. Sam Laporta is going to get a lot of targets, and that may make the threshold a little bit harder for him, because he's not just running away from targets like Tyreek Hill was. Tyreek Hill still had 70 plus targets over Jalen Waddle last year. Still 70 plus targets over him. So he still fits the category. CD was clear cut the leading target goer on that team, and he has a quarterback that can get him the ball for 4,000 yards in Dak Prescott. So CD as well, I think both of them are up there as well. But that Amon-Ra, I would love to play it too. Sam Laporta is the only thing slowing me down.
Yeah, and I guess when you compare it, Tyreek Hill never was the leading receiver when he was on the Chiefs and had Travis Kelce there.
Yeah.
So that
And
kind of
so
makes sense.
yeah, it's tough. And so if you look at that and we kind of go down that list and look at, hey, who's has the quarterback and is by far just pulling away in targets. The third name gives me, I put a question mark because what is the result of this Bengals offense with Jamar Chase? Is Jamar Chase going to dominate in targets, or is T. Higgins going to come back and they still use him really effectively because he's a really good wide receiver? I understand they have
Yeah,
the
right.
contract situations and he's looking to move on, but I mean, he right now he's slated to play. So is T. Higgins going to be in that offense and have a big role? If yes, then I think that it's going to be a kind of hard for Jamar Chase to get there. But if no, Jamar Chase is also really, really nice at 91.
Yeah, I like that at 9-1 too. Any long shots you're looking at?
So long shots, I have down Chris Olave is a question mark at 20-1.
Oh, okay.
And is Derek Carr a 4,000-yard passer? Is Derek Carr even going to be the quarterback for the entire season?
That's a big
the
question mark.
question marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big question mark. So I mean, Olave, he fits the bill. He dominated this team in targets, but does he have the quarterback that's going to consistently get him the ball? Same thing for I have DJ Moore. Like DJ Moore,
Mm-hmm.
is he gonna he's been target goer before, but is Caleb Williams really gonna be that 4,000-yard passer this year? I mean,
Well, and
I
he has
don't
a lot
know.
of competition too with Keenan Allen there and and then drafting Romo
Yeah,
Dunze as well.
so are those gonna steal away targets and he doesn't look like the target hog that he was last year? Like I don't know. I crossed out actually a lot of these long shot names, to be honest. Drake London, I crossed out. I didn't understand if Kyle Pitts, like is Kyle Pitts gonna be that option? Now, but if you're
Yeah.
fading Kyle Pitts, then maybe you do like Drake London. And Drake London is a lot more interesting if you just say Kyle Pitts isn't going to be that good. Devonta Smith and AJ Brown crossed each other out, so I don't have to worry about that. Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs crossed each other out. I don't have to worry about that. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle all crossed each other out. I don't have to worry about that. But there's two names that are double digits, maybe not long shot like 30-1 Travis Etienne, but Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua at 14-1 feel like my best bets in this section. That really feels like
Interesting.
it.
All right. You don't
Because
think
look
the
at this.
coming back of Cooper Kupp is going to take away from Puka's targets?
No, I don't. I mean, he didn't. It didn't seem like it really did anything when he came back last year. Now I know Cooper Kupp
Yeah.
was still kind of dealing with the ailment and all of that, but it looked like Puka was still getting a heavy workload. And so if Puka Nacua, and you're on that side of fantasy where you're saying Puka Nacua is still going to be really, really good, or Cooper Kupp's going to come back into this offense, like I think that Puka Nacua is worth a flyer at 14-1. But that Garrett Wilson play, this is me just tabling all my Garrett Wilson hype last year to this year. That is all this is. I was the biggest Garrett Wilson homer last year. I said that he was going to lead the league in receptions. I said he might lead the league in touchdowns. He was going to be one of the best wide receivers. And then Aaron Rodgers went and got hurt week 1. And it threw everything off. Well, guess what? I'm just tabling all those comments 365 until this year. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be that good. And now he has Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, who I think is still a really good quarterback and can still throw the ball for 4,000 plus yards this season. Like Garrett Wilson, I don't have any competition in that wide receiver room for targets that I'm worried about. I think honestly, the running back position is really the only competition that he really has that might steal him from this award. I think Garrett Wilson, honestly, is your NFL elite receiver next year.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're going Garrett Wilson 14-1 as the leading wide receiver. You also like Puka, and you don't hate Jamar Chase depending on what the T. Higgins situation is.
I don't hate Jamar Chase, and CeeDee Lamb would be the other person that I really do think. I'm not a Cowboys guy. Shout out to Jack. I'm not supporting Cowboys talk around here, but CeeDee Lamb at plus 650 really does have the odds. But man, I don't know. I don't know, man. I think Rodgers is gonna get.
But
You said what?
I'm still on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I like all these bets.
Yeah, I really do think that Amon Ra, like, oh man, Amon Ra can do it. I think. I mean, who else is gonna really? Is Jameson Williams gonna have a role? Like, who else? Jared Goff
Yeah,
really
I
might
mean,
just funnel these targets to
Jameson
TJ.
Williams came on a little bit more last season and towards the end, but and I do like him as a flyer at the end of like fantasy drafts. But I really do believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown can light up the league this year, and
Old
I like
fashioned
your Garrett
football.
Wilson take too. And old fashioned football believes is agreeing with me here.
Yeah, he said old fashioned football said Rodgers is washed. My only pushback for that is where's the tape that says Rodgers is washed? Because the last time he had a full season, he was pretty solid. Like he was pretty decent. It doesn't look like he's gonna be bad. He fed Devontae Adams targets. Devontae Adams was one of the best wide receivers in the league. Like so far, I haven't seen anything on tape that's told me Aaron Rodgers is going to be any worse than what he played, unless you're just assuming the Achilles injury is more than what it is. But I don't know. I think he's still going to be able to get the ball out as long as he has an offensive line that can take care of him. And they do have a better offensive line this year. They really, really targeted that in free agency and got better. I think that Garrett Wilson 100% is in there. Like I'm all the way sold on the Garrett Wilson train. He's one of my back end. I have a what is it? A home league where I'm picking 10th this year, and every mock it's been Garrett Wilson pretty much.
And you're taking him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
all
locked
right.
in Garrett Wilson.
All right. Sounds good. Garrett Wilson, Amon Ra. We like those bets. Moving on, we've got the uh, players to receive 1,000 yards or more. This is going to be a little more fun to
Mm-hmm.
build because we're going to have to put some extra names on there to get some good odds because it's a lot easier to catch 1,000 yards than rush for 1,000 yards. So where are we starting? You want to start with Garrett Wilson or where do we want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with Garrett Wilson, but I'll take him up a notch. I mean, 1,000 is not good enough for me. It's not good enough for me. I need 1,250. Give me
Oh, you want to go to
1,250
the
for Garrett
1250? All
Wilson.
right.
Give me the
Let's go to
1,250
the
for Garrett
1250.
Wilson.
All right. Yeah,
Plus
yeah, yeah. Hey, okay.
125.
Players have 1250. Let's get crazy with it. Garrett Wilson plus 145. Who should we parlay with that?
All right, let's see. I'm not gonna make everybody go for the 1,250. I just, I can't lay
Okay.
minus 330 on or 390. I can't lay minus 390 with Garrett Wilson. So I had to move him up. And I still think he easily gets to 1,250. There was 10 wide receivers last year, I believe, that got over 1,250 yards receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Garrett Wilson 100% can be one of the top 10 wide receivers in the league. So that's why I'm on the 1,250 for Garrett Wilson. Another 1,000-yard guy that I think is still going to get to 1,000 yards. We didn't talk about him, but I mean, he has a 4,000-yard passer in Texas with the Texans, and Nico Collins has Stephon Diggs coming to town, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody continues to tell me that Nico is still the number one.
All
Everybody's
right. So
saying
we're like
he's still the number
Nico at
one.
minus 140.
I mean, he's been so good. He was so explosive, and just looking at the offense and how they ran that offense, like it was a bunch of chunk plays for not just Nico, but for all the wide receivers. And so it just seems like that's going to be the way they go. And I don't need Nico Collins to go out there and have an amazing season. Like I don't need him to be the leading just 1,000 yards, and I think he could 100% get to 1,000 yards this season with how CJ Stroud was playing football last year, and they are bringing this team back. So yeah, I think Nico Collins at minus 140 is still a really good play.
That sounds great. Do we want to add Amon Ra 1250 or what are we thinking?
I think Amon Ra 1,250 is still a really fun play at minus 110. That's really the only thing. It was only minus 110 and not plus money, and that's what was the concern. But Amon Ra is
Mm-hmm.
going to be at the end of the day. He may not be number one. I think he's still a top 5 receiver in the league. Like I think he's going to finish
Absolutely.
top 5 in receiving yards, and so plus 1,250. If you're a top 5 receiver, plus 1,250 is really easy for you. So I understand why it's minus 110 odds. I think you do play Amon Ra.
Okay, so we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Nico Collins at 1,000. Amon-Ra and Garrett Wilson at 1,250. That is 3-pick parlay is at plus 700. Where do we want to go next?
Let's see. We want to play it safe. We want to play A long shot.
Let's see. I'm kind of looking at, well, if we want to get some plus odds for 1,000-yard season, I mean, it's not big plus odds, but Brandon Ayuk at plus 100. He has had 1,000 yards over the last 2 seasons, and I guess the question is, are we worried about his contract dispute, or seems like he's going to be a 49er again?
So it seems like he's a 49er, but I think he's only a 49er because they think they have a chance to win it all again. Like they think they're competitive again. But my question about Brandon Ayuk is if the wheels start to fall off and we get closer to that trade deadline and they look middle of the pack, maybe slightly better, but they're questionable about their Super Bowl chances, do they just cut ties and just get rid of them mid-season? Like, is that
call. And then we don't know what his situation will be.
No, and we've seen wide receivers kind of get traded all around, like during different parts of the year. So there's a lot of question marks around Ayuk that I just haven't been able to settle myself on. I think Ayuk is at even money. I'm not saying let's play him, but I think I would prefer Michael Pittman Jr., who has been the
that was going to be
model consistency.
Yeah, that was going to be my next player I was going to mention. He's had 2,000-yard seasons in the last 4 seasons. Had a little incident at training camp recently where he got into a fight with some teammates, but other than that, he has been a model of consistency.
Well, he gets in fights with teammates every year. That's his. Yeah, we do that every year. But I think that's a really good play, and I think he's just being underrated because he's really just kind of he's kind of just a really good wide receiver. Like he's just a good wide receiver. You never see him at the top of lists, but he's definitely not at the bottom. He's been consistent, like it's model consistency. And so if Anthony Richardson and him are on target and they're on really good and Richardson plays the whole year, I think 1,005 sounds like exactly where he finishes at.
Yeah, I like that. If we want to add another one that's not a long shot, any thoughts on Mike Evans going for Jerry Rice's record for 1,000-yard seasons? I mean, he's been consistent over the last 10.
And Baker's shown that he can still play, decently effective. It's not like there was too many games where they just couldn't get him the ball. Like he was having some really, really big games there for Tampa and still doing Mike Evans things. And so minus 155, I agree. I think Mike Evans is a really good play that you should look at. And again, we're just talking about 1,000 yards here. If you're one of the elite wide receivers in the league, you can be penciled in for 1,000 yards.
Absolutely. Okay, that puts our 5-pick parlay at plus 2670. We can add one more. Do we want to add one more, or do we want to stop it there?
Let's see. Anybody? I won't make you add Puka because there is still the question marks on Cup. But I do think Puka Nacua for 1,250 at plus 140 is almost as interesting as Garrett Wilson. Almost. I think we go with Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase at plus 1,250 or at 1,000?
Plus 1,250 minus 150. I mean, at the end of the day, regardless if T. Higgins figures it out or not, if he does it, this is clearly hitting. If he does, this probably still hits. Like Jamar Chase might not be the leading receiver, but he's still going to be top 5. There was too many times in the season where Jamar Chase was getting peppered with targets from not just Joe Burrow, but also Jake Browning. Like they kind of solidified that offense in saying that, hey, we're going to get Jamar Chase the ball. And Jamar Chase did what so few are afraid to do. And he bitched and complained. He did it. He complained and he got what he wanted and started getting the ball more. There's so many people who should complain more, but don't. And so I'm telling everybody, if you're a wide receiver in the league, because I know you guys watch these kinds of shows, you say you don't, but I know you do. If you're a wide receiver in the league and you feel like you're not getting the ball enough, complain, because guess what they're going to do? They're going to give you the ball. So, yeah, I think you should play Jamar Chase. Minus 150 at plus 1,250. I think Jamar Chase, again, we said it. He could be the leading receiver if things go right. Even if things go wrong, I think he still gets over this line.
Yeah. All right. We've got a 6-pick parlay plus 45-16, and that is, just to recap, Garrett Wilson at 1,250, 1,250 regular season yards. Nico Collins at 1,000 yards. Amon-Ra at 1,250. Michael Pittman Jr. at 1,000. Mike Evans at 1,000, and Jamar Chase at 1,250 receiving yards, and that brings us to plus 45.16. That is a real juicy parlay, Terrell. I like that a lot. I'm going to throw a couple bucks on that.
I have 154 to 1 that you might be interested in that I cooked up before we came on air.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
154 to 1, Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua for 1,250.
Okay, Garrett Wilson, Puka, okay.
And then go over to the running backs because you can mix and match. That's the key thing.
Oh, nice. I like this.
Yeah, so
let's do.
So we're going to go to the running backs to have 1,000 yards. And we're going to start off with Breece Hall.
Okay.
Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne, and Zamir White.
Ooh. Wow, yeah, that is at plus 15,423.
We might get shut down. I'm just letting you know we might get shut down here.
That I love that. That is a juicy parlay. That's a good one, Terrell.
I didn't mean to come on your show and instantly get you flagged by all the major sports books.
But
no. When we hit that 154 to 1 at the end of the year, there's going to be some flags going off.
Yeah, that's a great one, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You always bring it big, and I really appreciate it. Again, remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on X/Twitter at reallyreal__. You can find me on Betting Pros, and you can find me in the Sports Gambling Podcast Network.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, man. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll have to have you on the show again. Have a great one.
All right.